14 minutes past 9.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Live from the New Scientist Labs, Janine Young, newscientist.com.
Joining us in Melbourne City, Janine Young. Come on in. Good morning, Janine.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, this morning, a couple of interesting topics. We will be talking about NASA's mission, perhaps, to Titan. But first up, back here on Earth, we're talking about the Microbiome Consortium. They've got together. Who knew there was a consortium of the international microbiome people? But we're talking about...
There's always a consortium.
Yeah, there's always. We're talking about the study of microbes living on our bodies.
This year we've actually had a chat a couple of times, you and I, about what's going on in our guts. And I think some people have probably been a bit weirded out by the whole idea there's a bunch of bacteria and viruses and fungi and protozoans and other unmentionables in our bodies that we don't really want to think about. But it's been shown that fecal transplants, so taking the stuff that we produce and having someone else's cleaned material replaced, so I'm being delicate again, can actually help some particular conditions. There's a particular disease that just is horrible, that if you don't have it, it actually doesn't tend to get treated particularly well. But this microbiome consortium is actually looking at the bugs that are all over our bodies. It's not just in our feces and the like, we've also got them on our skin, they're in our mouths, they're in our delicate bits, they're everywhere. We're born 100% human, which means that we're clean, but in a natural birth, a child will pick up a bunch of bacteria from a woman's vagina and from her feces, because as much as we try to clean ourselves, there's always going to be some colonisation. Again, being delicate going on here.
Colonised at birth.
We are, very much, because as soon as you enter the world, you're exposed to what's around you. And even if you have a caesarean, you become infected, for want of a better word, by the hands of the people who deliver the baby. Now, there is a good deal of evidence to say that vaginal birth is actually really important for a child's initial exposure to these sorts of bugs, because it helps set them up in a really positive way, because we need these bacteria, particularly in our guts. We have them, as I said, absolutely everywhere. They're right across our skin. They're in our mouths. They're everywhere. In terms of how we get colonised, there's a lot of very big changes that happen after a baby is born. Unfortunately, they can die from necrotizing enterocolitis, which is a nasty disease if you're premature. It kills between around about 1 in 5 premature babies. They're not entirely sure why. They thought it's an infectious disease. But in starting to look at some of the bugs that were in these poor, unfortunate premature children, it seems that it's not an actual disease, it's just a disturbance of the bacteria and other bugs that they picked up when they were born. Because they're so premature, they do struggle to be able to develop appropriate systems and appropriate responses. But these bugs, particularly in our guts, are really important for helping to train our immune system, for example. By the age of about 3, we have what is going to be our gut flora. It sounds like a garden, doesn't it? In many respects it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. And you can have anything up to 1,000 possible species in your system, but they think there's probably about 600 in there at any given time. If you don't have gut flora, so they've tried this in mice, then you find that they don't develop the immune system quite the same way. It learns what's friend or foe by sampling gut flora. So it looks in there and goes, well, if you can live happily and we don't have any problems, then you must be good. If you don't have gut flora, again, in mice, then the little microvilli, as they're called, the little fingers, the really important indentations in our intestines to help digest the contents of the food that we have, they don't develop properly. So there are physical changes that are going on because of these bugs. And we think to ourselves, ew, we must rid ourselves of all bugs, and bugs are bad.
Yeah.
They're not. They're actually really important. So these antibacterial sprays that we're busy spraying on absolutely everything, and frankly shouldn't be, potentially causing more damage than good.
Yeah,
because these bugs are really, really important.
And there's these terrible ad campaigns that freak out small children by saying there's bugs everywhere, there's germs, and you must wash, you've got to keep your hands completely disinfected all the time, and don't touch these surfaces. And I think it really sets up the wrong message.
It does in many respects, because while it might be directed at children, they're really trying to get to their mothers.
Yeah.
Because guilt, as I am finding out the hard way, starts early when it comes to your child. You want the best. You want absolutely nothing to go wrong for them. And if they're bugs, they must be bad, mustn't they? Well, no, they're really not. There's also evidence to suggest that people who live in too clean an environment can develop things like asthma. Our immune systems have so little to do in Western culture that quite often they'll pick up useless substances like dust or grasses or cat, dog fur, that kind of thing, and look at them as being dangerous, when really they're not. The system that is involved in asthma really should be having a go at parasitic worms. So it's just been subverted off into something else. And so the evidence is there that these bugs are actually really, really important. They're also, just a final little point on what they do, they're really important for metabolizing drugs. Whether or not you react to paracetamol, for example, is down to our gut flora. Toxins, food additives, how we respond to them depends on the bugs that we have in our guts. There's also some thoughts that these bugs are going to be contributing to whether or not we're obese, whether we have type 2 diabetes. There's a range of different diseases, conditions, ways of life in many respects that are likely to come down to how our gut bacteria are formed when we're young, how many antibiotics we've taken over time. As soon as you kill off the bacteria that are there, you want to kill the nasties. That's really important. But unfortunately, it kills more than just the nasties, and it takes a while for it to recover. So if you keep taking antibiotics, it's likely to perturb your system, your natural garden, if you like, over time, and you won't recover what you initially had that was potentially keeping you healthy.
Indeed.
So staying off the antibiotics as much as you can is also another really good idea.
Okay, well, let's move along and head off planet with NASA apparently maybe sending a mission, a different kind of mission, I suppose, to previous NASA missions like to Mars, to the Saturn moon Titan.
This would be really exciting if it got up. This is part of a competition that NASA's been running. There's 3 different missions in the running for this. It's a $425 million program. They're at scoping stage at the moment. If it goes, it'll be in 2016. They want to send, effectively, a boat, if you like, off to Titan to go examine its lakes. Now, it's an icy planet, which means that it's actually sitting at minus 180 degrees. Their lakes are made of methane and ethane, which on Earth, because we're relatively warm, are gases, but not so on Titan. They're actually liquid. And it's known that there is a kind of equivalent of the water cycle. So here we have rain of water evaporates, goes into clouds, falls down, gets soaked into the ground, evaporates. So this water cycle, the equivalent on Titan is much more hydrocarbon based, and they think that any life that might be there is based around acetylene. So you kind of go, ooh, that's the stuff they use in arc welding, isn't it? But yes, it is. And they think that this might be a really interesting way to look at any kind of life forms that live there. It's going to be measuring, so I've got this right, temperature, humidity, the winds. They're going to take pictures of the lake surface and the shoreline, any clouds, because again, part of this cycle, clouds are going to be really important. The depth of the lake, and they're going to be looking at unusual patterns of chemicals using a mass spectrometer. So there's a vast array of things they want to do to try and work out what's going on Titan, because they think this is a possible candidate for life being out there.
Well, if it's going to be anything like the mission to Mars with the 2 rovers, that was really exciting, and how long that mission has lasted and all the photos that were sent back. And yeah, hopefully they get it underway. 2016, you reckon?
If it gets up, yes, there'll be they're at the scoping stage at the moment. These 3 programs have $3 million each. The other ones are a seismic monitoring station for Mars and a probe that would hop around the surface of a comet. So they're really interesting, all of them, but I think the Titan one sounds really cool. They're all at the scoping stage, and after a review in 2012, NASA will make a decision about which one's going ahead.
Very cool. Well, you can find that story right now up at newscientist.com, and the story about microbiomes and microbes and whatnot are up at the magazine, which comes out next week. Thanks very much, Janine. Cheers.
See you later.
Janine Young from New Scientist magazine. I'm a little bit confused.